What's up, guys? I'm here with a new lesson, and today I'll be teaching you guys about chords. And according to my notes here, we're in for a long one. So let's just get into it. But before we can get into chords and what they are and stuff, we have to talk about intervals because these are how you make your chords. If the chords are like a cake, the intervals are like the ingredients, right? So let's start with the perfect unison. So I'm gonna be playing on the piano here, and hopefully won't die during this recording session. But this is a perfect unison. We'll be starting on C. So a perfect unison is just that note. But then if you go up one half set, so that's a minor second. Go up two half steps, major second. Go up three half steps, minor third. Go up four half steps, major third. Go up five half steps, perfect fourth. Go up six half steps, that's a tritone. Go up seven half steps, that's a perfect fifth. Go up eight, that's a minor sixth. Go up nine, that's a major sixth. And go up 10, minor seventh. And go up 11, major seventh. And then go up 12. That's a perfect octave. So that's kind of a lot to remember. So yeah. So basically a chord is a group of notes that are played together to make a harmony. So yeah, it's not just any random notes though. Like if I played, that's not very pleasing to the ear. But if you play this, now that's a chord. In this case, that'd be a triad, which is a group of three notes in a chord. So we'll mostly be talking about triads and tetrads, which is four notes in a chord. So that would be something like this. So yeah, now let's talk about major and minor chords. So these ones are kind of like your basic chords. So when you hear a chord, the simplest way to identify them is that one's happy and one's sad. So if we played versus, it's the same chord except one is major, one is minor. It's just like the major scale. But now that we know how to identify them, let's figure out how you make them. So let's start off with a triad, which, it doesn't get easier than this. So let's talk about the three parts. So at the bottom is the root. So that'll be which chord it is, which I played a C, so that would be a C major chord. Then you go up to the third, which would be the third note in the C major scale, which C, D, E. So you would play C and E at the same time. Then you add the fifth, which would just be the fifth note in the scale. So C, D, E, F, G. So you play C, E, and G at the same time. And there you go. You got a major. But for the minor, it's basically the same thing. And really, you can just lower the third, but you could also just do this the same scale degrees that are on that one. So you could do, so the third note on the C minor scale is E flat. So you play C, E flat, G, and you get a C minor scale. Now we made that scale using scale degrees. However, you can also make it using the intervals I talked about earlier. So let's start off with their C like we did earlier. So that one would just be perfect unison because that's the first note, obviously. But then the E would be four half steps away from the root, which is true in every major scale. So to remember it, the third is a major third away from the root. So, and then from the third, you go up 3 half steps to get the 5th, which is a minor third away from the 3rd. Pretty confusing when saying it out loud. So it sounds something like this, as I showed earlier. However, a C minor triad would be a bit different. So instead of it being a major third from the root, this one would be a minor third. So, however, the 5th is only a major third away from the 3rd. So we go. So that's one way to look at it. Now next we have the diminished triad. So this one's a bit different, but in the simplest way, you lower the 3rd and the 5th. Instead of how in like a minor chord, you just lower the 3rd. So in the C major chord, you lower the E flat and you lower the G to a G flat. So you go, so it'd be C, E flat, G flat. That's what a diminished chord sounds like. Very, very weird. And next up, we have augmented triad. So for this one, you just take a major triad, and then you keep the root in the 3rd, and then you raise the 5th. So, and if we did C major, you would keep the C and the E, and then the G would raise to a G sharp. So it sounds something like this. Now, next up, we have a 7th chord, which, in the simplest way possible, it's basically a triad, and then you add the 7th, which is just a 7th scale degree. So for C, it would be C, E, G, B. So like that. And you also have to keep in mind the key signature for that chord, which for that one was easy because it's just, the white keys, all natural. But if we were to play a C minor 7th chord, it'd be C, E flat, G, B flat. So it'd sound like. So yeah, just remember that, because it could throw you off and make the chord sound crunchier than it should be. Now, this is an interesting chord. It's the diminished 7th, but now you can fully diminish it or you can half diminish it. So let's start with the half. So in the half diminished, you have a minor 7th, aka 10 half steps. So if we start from C, let's count up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you have B flat. So I would go have C, E flat, G flat, B flat. So that would be half diminished. However, in a fully diminished one, the minor 7th gets lowered to 9 half steps from the root. So it go C, E flat, G flat, A. So that's fully diminished. So you can have yeah. So next up we have dominant chords. This chord is similar to diminished in a way, but instead of it being based on the diminished triad, it'll be based on the major one. So we can have C, E, G, and then we have to add the minor 7th, so which in this case would be B flat, so it would be. So yeah, that's for dominant chord. And I'll probably go more in depth in dominant chords and what exactly they are in probably my chord progression video, which might be my next video, because I'm gonna be honest, after this video I have no idea what my next lesson is gonna be. So yeah. So for this next chord, we have to go back to what we talked about in one of our previous videos, which are scale degrees. So in addition to the 7 scale degrees, or I guess 8 for some people, there are extra scale degrees. So let's say obviously C would be 1, right? And if you go all the way up the scale to the octave higher C, which I guess would be 8 in this case, the D above that would be 9, and then E would be the 10, and so on. So in this chord, you can use the extra scale degrees. these chords are called extended chords, and really for a lot of these chords, like it's mostly used in jazz, so they might sound very weird and crunchy. And this is probably the most I'll be talking about jazz on this channel, because really I don't understand like the logistics of jazz. But basically, in this chord, you would just play like a normal seventh chord, and then you would just add next note like a cherry. So let's do C major seventh. So let's start right here. Pretty awesome. And then we add the 9 because we're going to play the C major ninth. So if you can hear it, there was the D in there. And then we can do C major 11th, which would be C, E, G, B, F. So it'd be sounds something like this. Or you can do the C major 13th, which would sound something like this. Now, these are when the chords get kind of crazy, because we're going to be talking about altered chords. And basically, an altered chord is where the chord is changed by raising or lowering a note up or down a half step. However, you can't change all of them, and like you cannot change the first, third, or seventh, but you can change the fifth and any of the extended scale degrees. So let's do a C major 7. So, and then I can raise the fifth and make something like this. See, how's that? A little weird sound in it. Or I can lower the ninth. So let's play a C major ninth. So C, E, G, B, D. And then I can lower it. So instead of playing D, I would play D flat. So it sounds kind of muddy, but yeah, some of these chords are weird. So next up, we have suspended chords, which these chords are interesting because these are like the suspended chord is like a chord that doesn't really have an identity yet. So like for a chord to like register in your head as major or minor, you have to hear the third. So whether it's a major third or a minor third decides on whether or not it's major or minor. So, but if you play a different note, it's gonna sound weird and you won't really know what it is. So if you play if we're staying in the key of C, if we play C, D, G, it'd sound weird. It'd sound, because it doesn't sound major or minor. However, you can resolve it, and you can resolve it up like that, or you can resolve it down. So you can go so yeah, and most commonly, instead of it being like the third in the scale, it's usually the second or the fourth. So those are all the chords I wanted to cover in this video. However, the last thing I do want to cover is chord notation. And basically this is how it's like written out. So this is how you would see it in like piano pieces. You would see it sometimes in jazz and like solo sections. But I'm here to teach you guys the formula to how to like notate a chord, you see. So if you know what the root of your chord is, because sometimes you don't, which actually I'm gonna cover this real quick because I completely forgot to mention it. Sometimes the lowest note in your chord is not the root. So let's take C major triad. That'd be like it's called not first inversion. That's just the normal scale. However, if you put the C an octave up and have the lowest note be an E, that would be a C major triad first inversion. Or you can even put both the C and the E up an octave and then have the G be your lowest note. So it sounds like this. And that would be a C major triad second inversion. So yeah, it's not always the root. But before I went off topic, um, if you know what your root is, which it should be easy to figure out because there's a bit of a pattern to it. Like the for C major like triad, it like you can just play the notes like right. So that would be a C major triad. However, if you played like the first inversion version, that sounds weird. It would sound different. So, look. Or if you even tried the second inversion, it'd go. It wouldn't sound right. But once you know what your root is, that's your tonic. So that'd be the name of your scale. So let's take C. Let's just stick with C. So you'd write C, and if it's major, keep it capital, and you'll see why when we touch minor chords. And then you would put MAJ or a capital M to show that's major. And then if it's a triad, you just end it right there. However, if it's a seventh chord, you add a seventh to the end. And then that's kind of it for like a normal seventh. However, if it's one of those altered chords I talked about earlier, if you like raise, like let's say you raise the ninth, it'd be sharp 9 to show which scale degree you altered. Or if you lowered it, it'd be like flat 9. So let's say we raised the ninth in a C major scale. So it'd be C, MAJ, 7, sharp 9 to show that that's what the chord is. But if you have a minor chord, it's a bit different. So you would obviously it's similar. So the root of the note would be the name of it still. However, you would put a lowercase m, or you could put MIN to show minor. And then everything else is basically the same. Add a 7 if it's a seventh, and then show what scale degree you altered if you did that. If not, just keep that empty or blank. And yeah. And then if you have augmented, you would put a plus or just put AUG. And yeah. And then if you have a fully diminished chord, you would put like a degree symbol. And then if it's half diminished, you put like this like a degree symbol with like a cross in it to show that it's half diminished. But yeah. So that'll do it for this video. This video took a little research because I really didn't remember chords that much from when I was in my music theory class. The only thing I remember was triads and how to make a major minor triad, because that stuck with me. But all this other stuff I had to look into and use my sources. And I wish I would have used my old notes I used to have, but I do not have good handwriting, so I had to look some of these up. But yeah, if I made a mistake or something, feel free to call me out in the comments and all that. And yeah, also if you guys like I said earlier in this video, I have no idea what my next lesson is gonna be. So I think chord progressions might be next. But if you have like another lesson you want me to teach, feel free to tell me. I do want to do like, I think it's called like syncopations, or like the thing where you pick, like you like stem it, you actually write it, because that's something I kind of struggled with, and I want to teach you guys that in case you guys want to like compose or something, and like literally write it out so it doesn't look like wrong. But yeah, I have a lot of editing to do. So see ya, stay awesome, stay skibbity.